Hello, class of 2021. For those of you that I haven't met yet, my name is Margie Adler, and I'm Managing Director of Alumni Relations at SOM. I am so thrilled to be joining you today to welcome you to the alumni community. Before I introduce our first guest, I want to congratulate you on completing this journey, especially under these challenging circumstances. We could not be more proud of your accomplishments or more proud to welcome you to this community. I've gotten to know many of you during your time at SOM, and I know that you are as committed to the ideals and mission of the school as the alumni who've come before you. As you go out and start this next stage of your career and your lives, your SOM experience will continue to guide your choices, and this community will continue to be a resource for you. It is now my great pleasure to introduce to you an alum who truly embodies the school's mission to educate leaders for business and society. Mina Kamet is a Senior Risk Management Officer at the World Bank Group's Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, where she analyzes emerging markets to provide investors with political risk insurance, mobilizing foreign investment for economic development. Prior to joining the World Bank, Mina worked in emerging markets risk intelligence in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors in the US, UK, and Egypt. Mina graduated from Yale College in 2009 and from SOM in 2012, and currently serves as Vice Chair of the Yale International Alliance, whose mission is to celebrate the international experience and to inspire Yale alumni to be global citizens. Please join me in welcoming Mina.
Thanks so much, Margie, and hello to the Yale School of Management class of 2021. It is my absolute pleasure to be here with you today and an honor to welcome you into the SOM alumni community. Thank you to SOM for having me back for such a special occasion. While I wish we could all be together in person, I'm thrilled that many of you will be commencing together on Monday. If you're anything like I was during the commencement season, you might be asking yourself, how is it that I'm already graduating? Could it really be time to move on? Under any circumstances, B-School can feel like a blur. Time flies when you're meeting new people, expanding your horizons, and applying yourself to new pursuits, and of course, having fun. But I'm sure that the added and odd complications of the last year have compounded that feeling for many of you. So it may feel like your SOM experience has been a fleeting, if a rewarding and cherished one. For this reason, it's incredibly important to remember, to cultivate your memories of this time in your life and keep them within reach, always. So before we look to your future as alumni, I wanted to take a moment to reflect on the past. If you'll indulge me, think back to the days when you were applying to business schools. Remember learning about SOM and what about this place spoke to you? What resonated? What made you feel that this could be the right place for you to pursue your purpose and your aspirations? Remember that moment of here goes nothing when you press submit, and the many times you may have spoken with crossed fingers and caveats and cautious optimism about being admitted while you awaited that final decision. Remember the nervous anticipation of opening that email, which eventually and thankfully reached you all. And remember the excitement and gratitude that you felt and shared with your loved ones when you realized that the next chapter of your life would be at SOM. But something that's not lost on me is that if you got into SOM, you probably had other options. You chose this place just as much as it chose you. Remember why that was. For me, it was SOM's commitment to training thoughtful and collaborative and well-rounded leaders for business and society. It was our school's mission-driven ethos and our community's support for diverse ambitions. It was SOM's emphasis on anticipating the consequences of our decisions in leadership, not just for the bottom line, but for the big picture, and taking responsibility for them. It was also the informal, warm, fun, and accessible community that I so wanted to be part of. Just take a moment to remember why you chose SOM. My sincere hope is that between the day you accepted your place at SOM and today, you have been convinced in ways big and small that you made the right choice, that your experience lived up to its promise despite the unprecedented challenges you have faced, and that your faith in this journey was well placed and wise. I hope that you're coming out the other side edified and energized. While your days at SOM may have come and gone, I have the pleasure of telling you that your education, your training, many of your relationships, your memories, and of course, your new role as alumni will last forever. If I may, I'd like to share a perspective on what being an alum of our school means. When you applied to SOM, you were asked in some form or another about your personal mission. There was an expectation that you wanted to make an impact in your chosen field and by extension in the world. This is in our DNA. But your mission is a living and breathing thing. As SOM alumni, you and I must take stock once again and again and again of our vision for the future and try to articulate our role in it. I hope that your time in school has enabled the reflection needed to help you in this important task. Second, remember that you are alumni not only of SOM, but of Yale, and that is a rare ticket to lifelong connection and learning. Know that there are endless opportunities for you to strengthen and expand your relationships within the broader Yale alumni community. For example, I'm the Vice President of the Yale International Alliance, as Margie mentioned earlier. In YIA, we're cultivating a mutually supportive network of alums from every Yale program and every class year, united by both our values and our ties to this university. In the International Alliance, I spent the last several months leading a small discussion group of alumni around the world, focusing on the big issues, such as climate change and economic development, truth and misinformation, and the relationship between passion and duty in our lives. Remember that for you, the alumni community can be a resource beyond career advice and social events. It can feed the forever student in you and provide a forum to pursue your interests with so many like-minded people. Finally, I would encourage you to view this moment as a beginning rather than as an end. As alumni, now is the time to use all that you've gained from your SOM experience out in the world. In our most recent small group discussion, the guiding question was, what attributes are needed by leaders to address the world's most pressing challenges? And are universities like Yale up to the challenge of cultivating such leadership? Take a quick moment to reflect on this question. I hope that you continue to think about it. But while my group members had varying perspectives on this, we shared the view that exposure to global issues and diverse perspectives, as well as practical skills and empathy and accountability, were all critical. You are graduating into a world of uncertainty, but also into a world of possibilities which did not exist just 1 year ago. This crisis has presented us with the opportunity to question the givens of yesteryear, to revisit conventional wisdom, to interrogate the assumptions and agreements that we at times didn't even know we'd made as a society. Fortunately, SOM alumni were built for times such as these. I believe that with the inherent values which drew you to a place like SOM, the relationships you've forged, and the tools you've sharpened through your studies, you are in the best position possible to help see us all through this and build a better, more resilient world. I would venture that your job as alumni is to prove me right in this. Congratulations and welcome to the alumni community. I now have the distinct pleasure of introducing today's headliner, Seth Goldman from the SOM class of 1995. Seth is founder of Eat the Change, a platform to inform and empower consumers to make dietary choices aligned with their concerns around climate and health. Eat the Change recently launched a line of organic mushroom jerky as part of this mission. Seth is also the co-founder of Plant Burger, Honest Tea, and chair of the board of Beyond Meat. He has been widely recognized for his entrepreneurial success and impact, including as Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year in Greater Washington, the Washington, D.C. Business Hall of Fame, Beverage Industry Magazine's Executive of the Year, and the Partnership for a Healthier America's CEO of the Year. Join me in welcoming Seth to the stage.
Thank you, Mina, and hi, everyone. Well, that was great, Mina. I really love what you said about challenging assumptions, and I actually want to talk about that quite a bit. But first of all, congratulations, everybody. I'm honored to be with you today and welcome you to the amazing community of Yale alumni. Of course, we'd all prefer to be together in New Haven, but if it's any consolation, I actually gave the keynote address last night for the Hawaii Food and Wine Festival. And because the hour, I actually gave that from my basement in Bethesda. So for today, at least, a virtual New Haven beats a virtual Hawaii. You can't say that every day. I know you may not feel like you've had the full New Haven experience because of all the weirdness we've been through over the past 18 months. But whether it's on your resume or at a reunion, there's no asterisk next to your degree. And as I'm sure you've been told, you guys are all invited to the next 5 SOM reunions at no charge, which is pretty cool and gives you the chance to really meet the broader community in a way that no other classes had that access. So you have received a Yale education, yes, and it's been different than the classes who came before you, and it's certainly be different from the classes that will come after you. But you've taken all the courses, you've learned all the materials, and developed all the skill sets that qualify you for a Yale SOM MBA. But wait, there's more. In addition to your standard MBA, you also received an involuntary crash course on what it's like to be an entrepreneur. There were plenty of moments over the past 2 years where you had to deal with uncertainty and didn't have the resources to tackle the issues forced upon you. First it was lack of information, what's happening. Then it's lack of access to masks, lack of access to tests, finally lack of access to vaccines. And you had to learn to get things done despite these challenges. And while it may be tempting to complain, it's a natural impulse, or give up, or just ask for a do-over, you did what any good entrepreneur has to do. You found a way to get things done. And really, that's one of the most important lessons. You don't get to define what life throws at you. When I was contemplating launching Honest Tea, leaving the investment world to do that, there were so many excuses I could have used. I didn't have the financial resources to protect my family if it didn't work out. I didn't have any relevant experience in the beverage or food industry. I really had only worked 2 years in the private sector. Our son had just been diagnosed with a very serious heart condition. But there's never a perfect time to do anything in life. That's because you don't get to define how and what life throws at you. You only get to define how you react to things. I want to reflect a bit today on the difference between knowledge and wisdom. You go to a place like SOM to gain knowledge, and you gain the requisite knowledge. You learn the spreadsheets and the equations and the management techniques and the strategies to lead and to negotiate. But you also gain something more valuable than knowledge. Because of the way this year unfolded, you also gained wisdom. And so there are a lot of knowledgeable people out there, but there aren't as many wise people out there. And I believe wisdom is actually what will help separate you in your career. The difference between knowledge and wisdom is the difference between being able to put together a spreadsheet of sales projections and really understanding what it takes to make the sales happen. I remember when we were starting Honest Tea, Barry and I were excited because we wanted to get Honest Tea into the Yale dining services. And so he said, well, I'll take that sales call. I'm here. And I don't remember all the details, but I do remember that after there were like several series of phones hung up on each other and a door slammed or something. And I thought to myself, well, that wasn't in my spreadsheet. But today, wisdom also means having the patience to understand you can't always control the terms of the game you're playing. That you have the creative, but you need to have the creativity to figure out the solutions to problems you've never before experienced. And perhaps most important, and this is something you really honed this year, you have to have the resilience to renew your personal energy, to renew your attitude, and to deal with the challenges as they keep coming. So, although I said there's no asterisk to your degree, perhaps there should be, because in addition to the typical SOM education, you've also gained this knowledge, this wisdom that will make you even better equipped to deal with whatever life presents you. Since you all have the knowledge part down, I thought I would focus the rest of my remarks today on some of the wisdom I've learned since SOM. Now, I was a marketing TA when I was there, but my comments are actually focused on investing, which may have surprised the professors who were overseeing my work. And as you've been told in investments, there's no guarantees. But I can tell you there are certain investments where there's no downside. The first place to invest in life and with your efforts is in your family, however you define family. Be sure to allocate time and energy to be with people you love. And to be clear, being with someone does not, when I say being with someone, I don't mean you're scrolling on your phones together. I mean, you're looking into their eyes, you're speaking to them with intention, you're listening with intention. And whether it means visiting, an elderly parent or coaching a child's baseball or theater group, these are the kind of investments that there's just no downside to them. It's easy to think, especially if you're in a leadership position at a company, it's easy to think, well, I'm the CEO of a company and I'm the CEO of my family. And I think in my family, I'm definitely not the CEO. I may not even be the COO, but I am a loyal worker. And make sure you always walk in the door with that sense of humility. Whatever happens in the office or the workplace is really irrelevant to what happens inside your home. And bring that presence, bring that full attention to it. Now, investing in family doesn't mean that bad things won't happen or that there won't be difficult times, because there will. But you'll know you have invested in those relationships and made those bonds more resilient for all of those challenges that are to come. The second thing to invest in is to invest in causes you believe in. You don't have to search far to find a cause worth investing in these days. I mean, look at what's happened just in the past year. We've seen dramatic and traumatic events that are the consequences of challenges likely to define the way we live and the way we coexist for really most of your professional lives. Last summer's race-based protests and demonstrations erupted as a result of the inequities in economic opportunity and the legacies of institutional racism that have existed for decades, but were brought to the fore after George Floyd's murder. The phrase Black Lives Matter moved from something heard only in certain communities to something regularly recited in the boardroom. And it needed to be said because Black lives have historically been undervalued. Now, saying that phrase doesn't change institutional racism, but it's a good and overdue place to start. Climate change finally took its rightful place on the world stage as an issue that can no longer be denied or overlooked. And then this year further accentuated the deep global imbalances in wealth, not just in terms of income, but also in terms of access to healthcare and other basic needs. And finally, though we don't know what the exact origins of the pandemic were, we know it was a zoonotic-based disease that emerged as a result of our unhealthy relationship with the animal kingdom. Each of these issues and many more are worth investigating. And while it may be overwhelming to want to address all of them, it's not an excuse to do nothing. Find something you can invest in, your time, your knowledge, your money, your passion. You may not see that issue resolved in your lifetime, but you will never regret putting time and money into causes you care about. And that was a part of the mindset we had on this team. We said, look, we hope it works out. We're certainly betting a lot on it. Our houses, our livelihoods, but even if it doesn't work out, this is a cause worth doing. It's a cause worth pursuing. And, money is only money. A cause is something that can live on. The last asset with a guaranteed return on investment is investing in yourself. Whether it's exercise, meditation, prayer, or all of the above, make sure you devote time and energy into giving yourself a sense of balance, a sense of vitality, and a sense of positive energy. This might seem like a selfish or even hedonistic approach to life, especially after you've just completed 2 years educating yourself. But when you can bring your full self, your most vital self, to an organization, to a cause, to the people you love, you're actually giving them energy and inspiration, and the kind of things they need to help them achieve their full potential. I want to just give a few more thoughts around how change happens. I have found that change happens really slowly until it happens really quickly. So think about the issues I mentioned, the dialogue about race, our reckoning with climate change, the growth of the plant-based meat category. When most of you were in college, these were marginal issues that weren't discussed in mainstream news, let alone in the boardroom. Today, most of the major corporations in the US are on record stating that Black Lives Matter. Every company is expected to have a strategy or at least a PR effort to address climate change. And every major grocery chain has a plant-based set of offerings in their meat section. But not only that, corporations also accelerated the pressure to recognize and legalize gay marriage, as well as the rights and respect for transgender people. So you may not be going into the public sector for your career, but that doesn't mean you won't be influencing the critical issues of our day. So now this brings me to my last point. What is the key to making change happen? After all, this is Yale University, home of the secret societies. Is there a secret alumni handshake we're all supposed to know to become part of the Changemakers Club? I mean, maybe that's what this whole alumni society is about. Well, for an answer to that, I'd like to share with you one of my favorite Honest Tea bottle cap quotes. It's from Swami Byandananda. He said, "The bad news is there's no key to the universe. Good news is it was never locked." So the changes we wish to see are possible, and they are more within reach than we might imagine. I've never lived through a time or a year of so much change. And there's no special superhero who's going to make it happen. It's all of us. It's you, it's me. You now have the knowledge, and more importantly, you now have the wisdom to make these changes happen. Good luck and best wishes for continued growth and impact.
Hi, Seth. Hi, Mina. Thank you both so very much for joining us today. And I just want to say hi to the class of 2021. My name is Courtney Lightfoot. I'm Managing Director of Alumni Engagement and Volunteer Programs at Yale SOM. We couldn't be more proud of your class and inspired by your perseverance, and we're so excited to begin a lifelong relationship with you as alumni. We have received questions from many of you for Mina and Seth in advance of today's session, so let me turn to a few of those now. And if there is some time, we'll take some additional questions from the Q&A, so please do submit your questions there, and we'll try to get to those. My first question is for Mina. Mina, your career trajectory since leaving SOM continues to inspire me. How did you get started in your current role, and were there pivots along the way?
Thank you for the question, and that warms my heart. SOM was a really important part of my career development. I actually had taken a class at SOM as a senior in Yale College called Doing Business in the Developing World with Mushfiq Mubarak. And that was my entree into the world of SOM. And I realized that this was a place where, questions that I found important were being discussed and where I could learn more in pursuit of my desire to help facilitate investment in emerging markets with a view toward bringing economic development and needed services and capital to people who needed it. And so when I came to SOM, I continued along that path. And I think that I have never mapped out the whole thing, but at each step, I took advantage of the resources that were available, whether it was the amazing electives I had, whether it was the job tracks and that gave me exposure to where I had my first internship in this industry at the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, now DFC, the US government's political risk insurance agency. And I didn't always know what was next, but when that thing appeared, I was able to recognize it, and I had done the groundwork to be able to take advantage of that opportunity and advance, I would say. And so that internship at OPIC really set me on this course and showed me I have a passion for this sector. I did make detours along the way. I worked in consulting for a long time with different types of investors, assessing different types of risks in emerging markets. But all of those things contributed to the capabilities that I needed for my current job. So when I had a chance to come back into the political risk insurance market in the private sector, I jumped on it, and that led me to the World Bank. So I would say continuing to recognize the best options when they arise and to position yourself for them is most important, and the rest will take care of itself.
Excellent. Thank you. I have a question for both of you. What does your relationship look like with the school and faculty today since you've graduated? And how do you continue to leverage your classmates and professors in your work and your lives? Seth, I'll ask you to answer that first.
Sure. Well, I probably have a little bit of an unfair advantage because, Barry was my co-founder. So I was always in touch with a yale.som.edu email almost daily for 15 years, and then I found different parts of the school that I wanted to continue to invest in and get engaged with. So I co-chair the entrepreneurial center with Kyle Jensen, the work he's doing, and help give advice and input there. I also got involved sponsoring the Net Impact interest group. So we would support a delegation of Yale SOM students coming to the Net Impact Conference every year, because that was such an important, I think for me, so formative in my career. And I wanted to make sure people at Yale SOM had the opportunity to do that. So we would support their travel costs. And then whenever they would come to the conference, we would always sit down for a few hours, for an hour, have breakfast together and get to know them there. And then we've also supported the Natural Product Expo has a program where we were able to bring over MBA students, and there were always Yale SOM students in there. And I was always proud of the fact, both at Net Impact and at Expo West, that Yale had a disproportionate impact, and partially because maybe they were being subsidized, but also because it was just natural for them to be interested in it. So what I encourage my classmates to do is, find the issues you care about and then go invest in them. The school welcomes your engagement. There are these advisory councils there's an advisory group for the Entrepreneurship Center. I was also on the advisory board of the school. I mean, there really are lots of opportunities to stay connected to the school. It takes some initiative, but I found that it's well worth the return on investment.
Thank you, Seth. Mina, what about you?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I stay in touch with my friends from school, and those are really important relationships, which have helped me personally and professionally thus far. I think that when I came out of SOM, I utilized the alumni network a lot in a really intentional way. I wanted to know what options were out there and how I could explore different career paths. And I can tell you that every single alum who I ever contacted replied to me and met with me and helped me on my way. And so that's been a really important contributor to my life so far, but also something that drives my engagement with SOM now, being there for students who are, finding their professional way, participating in the intimate job talks most recently a few months ago, as well as working with the Alumni Relations Office through Yale International Alliance to try and find ways to engage alumni around the world. And I think that that's a really important part of my ongoing relationship with SOM and Yale more broadly.
And Courtney, I should also mention, when we're starting Honest Tea, we had investors who were Yale SOM alums. My introduction to Whole Foods came from Joe Dobrow, he was head of marketing at Fresh Fields, but he was just a few years ahead of me. So along the career path, there's tons of Yale SOM alums in the food industry. So I really run into those folks all the time.
That's great. Thank you. I'd love to hear a little bit more from both of you about things that you studied or learned as students that helped you in your career, and you think about it every day. So Seth, why don't you go first on that one?
Yeah, it's funny. The things that I really got out of SOM, I'd like to think I came there with good marketing instincts and left with good marketing. They weren't they weren't crushed while I was there. So I may have learned some more disciplines around them. But the things that I didn't know were around accounting and finance, and even going through the IPO process. I had to call. Okay, yeah, I had a little more credibility, doing the roadshow on the IPO with Beyond Meat because of the fact that I, been through these finance courses. And I also took, some really painful accounting courses I was like, I didn't go to my strength. I went to my weakness and tried to shore those up. And those have continued to serve me well.
Thank you. Mina, what about you?
I had a similar experience in that in university or in college, I studied economic development and Middle East studies, and I was interested in investment, but I knew nothing about investment. I knew nothing about finance. And I thought, how can I advise investors or help them manage risk of, these activities if I don't understand the basis on which they make decisions? So I felt like for me, SOM was kind of a critical place to start the career I wanted. And I don't know what I would have done without that foundation. And I think just generally, I can do percentages in my head now, thanks to SOM, and that was helpful in all manner of areas of life.
Excellent.
Yeah, I should point out there were some things that I didn't get at SOM that are worth noting, at least as an entrepreneur. Sales, like there's no course on sales, but like sales is like I'm doing that every day, hopefully every hour. And then we call it farmer's math. It's just the quick, okay, if something's going to cost me, 0.4 cents more, what does that mean when I put it in a case? Just some of that stuff. It was something I could learn, so you could say SOM got me ready for all those things. But there are some skills you do have to learn in the workplace.
I could add just one more thing that you mentioned things I think about every day. Being able to present has been very important in everything I've undertaken since leaving SOM. And when I was in school, I remember thinking, we emphasize this a lot, yet another class presentation, yet another group project. But I now see that was really designed to mimic the real world experience and to prepare us. And I think that's something that graduates should be aware of.
So the last year impacted all of us in so many ways. What are some of your takeaways from this past year? How has the last year changed, things that you'll do or think about? And, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your personal experiences. Why don't you try that first?
As I mentioned in my earlier remarks, this past year has given me the time and space to question and evaluate the assumptions that I had, the way that I was living my life, and by extension that the world was running, and things that just seemed to be the way things are no longer accepted without question. And I think that this year, even though it was challenging in a huge number of ways, one advantage was that it's very hard to slow down unless everyone slows down, because no one wants to be left behind. No one wants to feel like they're not being uber productive or continuing to try to aspire and attain. And so the ability for us to sit and stay still, and for me not to travel 30% of the time, for example, made me think about what it is about my job that I like and that I don't like, what I would like to do in the future, what my values really are and what's important, and what I could live without, having lived without it for a year against my will. But so I've benefited in some ways from coming back to some home truths.
One of the transformations that's happened with me and with my wife is that we now are able to see birds, and I'll try to explain what that means. Like, obviously, birds have been around. It's not like new birds started coming out, but we got some binoculars and started learning and going for hikes. And it's amazing. It's really a metaphor. It's factual, but it's also an amazing metaphor to think that the most amazing birds are all around us, and we just never noticed them before. So like just last weekend, we were hiking and I saw a brilliant Baltimore Oriole. And I never, like, I grew up, I've been in Maryland for more than 20 years. I'd never seen a Baltimore Oriole in the tree. And so, and there's all these warblers migrating through. And so seeing birds actually is like a real revelation, because they're beautiful and amazing and these incredible, like, beautiful creatures. But it's also like an amazing metaphor that what else has been around you that you haven't seen, that you haven't noticed, that you've taken for granted, and that there is real beauty. Like Mina said, there's also real ugliness around you that you also ignore and miss. And so for me, that metaphor has really been powerful about sort of looking at the same things, but seeing them differently.
Yes, agreed. We have just a few minutes left, so I'd love to give you both an opportunity to give some parting advice to the class of 2021 before we close. And so, Mina, why don't you go first?
Thank you, Courtney. I think I captured what I wanted to convey earlier, but really, I hope that you will be able to, despite the anxieties and transition of starting a new chapter of life, have the chance to question and to be intentional about what it is you do next, but also about what world you want to see, and then what your role is in creating that. Because we have such tremendous reach and access and assets, time, talent, treasure, whatever it is, as graduates of SOM and as and especially Unified, that I think it's really important for us to be conscious of that and recognize the power of it and use it well. And so I have no doubt that we're all thinking along the same lines, given the kind of place where we've gone to school. But I just hope that you can resist any temptation there might be for some level of normalcy to slide into whatever you would have done if you had graduated in 2019.
Nice. Yeah, I think the one thing that people, especially coming out of school, going into a first, a professional or corporate job post-school, feel a lot of pressure to go along and get along. And whether it's what you wear, what you say, how you act, sort of muting an opinion you might have, when in fact your strongest superpower, yes, you've got great degrees and education and now a network, but being your authentic self is the most powerful thing you have. And don't shy away from that. Don't suppress that. And I'll admit, for honesty, we were building it and we were always trying to succeed. We were kind of going against the grain. So we would try to, get along with these beverage distributors who had a very different culture than ours. And then when we got into Coca-Cola, we would, there was obviously a different way of thinking about consumers' health and impact. And we never backed down from those views, but we were never, but I sometimes felt a little intimidated. And it was only when I realized that, the reason I'm here, the reason Honesty got to this point, and the reason they still value me is because I'm saying what I believe and I'm not backing down from it. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, actually that is empowering. And that's something you all have. Don't ever, go along with a decision you don't feel is ethically right because you are afraid about what the ripples are. You actually gain power when you can express what you really believe in. And people, and just from I talked about marketing, just from a branding perspective, every time you have an interaction, you are creating a brand impression. And make sure your brand impression is this person is always going to do and say and act in an authentic way. That's something that becomes really powerful as you continue to invest in yourself and your brand.
Incredible advice from both of you. Thank you so much. And I want to thank you both again for joining us today and for all that you do to support the school, our current students, and the alumni community. On behalf of the entire alumni relations team, we send our warmest congratulations to the Yale SOM class of 2021. Please look out for more information from my office and from the Yale Alumni Association about the many ways you will be able to stay connected to one another and connect with alumni across SOM and the university. We very much look forward to staying in touch and seeing you again. In the meantime, we will be admiring from afar all of the ways that you live out the mission of Yale SOM in your lives and your work. And we're here to support you in any way we can. So thank you, stay safe, be well, and welcome to the Yale alumni community. Thank you all so much.